My 5-year-old gets taken out of class every day but not sure why.
Do not comment on linked posts. I am not op. Original post by you, I want it that way 6 in our kindergarten. Trigger warnings. None. Less than. And NBSP. My 5-year-old gets taken out of class every day but not sure why. February 8, 2024. My son recently informed me that just about every day, some type of aide lady takes him from the class and brings him to a different room with games, balls, scooters, other sensory type equipment. He says they play things like Uno or Mother May I. Sometimes they ride the little scooters down the hallway. Other times he does exercises like jumps and stuff. I guess I'm just surprised his teacher never told me any of this, not in an email or parent-teacher conference. I was just wondering, does anyone here know why this happens? I feel like I'm not doing something right at home for them to have to go out of their way and take him out of class. Apparently it's only him and 2 other boys that get taken out of the class to do this. He is not special ed or diagnosed with anything. I will obviously ask his teacher, but I wanted to know if anyone else had this in their school. I know growing up I had nothing like this in elementary school, so I'm so confused. Janice Harimal said, they should have discussed this with you. Having said that, it seems cool that they are trying to accommodate your high-energy child instead of punishing him. Oop replied, yay, I agree. I love his school and his teacher is amazing. Well, I sent her an email because I'm curious. Also, I feel bad, like there's something I'm not doing at home with him that could help. He's in karate and is very high energy. Limited screen time, and I try to get him outside as much as possible. Nombre Unknown replied to OOP. At that age their little bodies are telling them to move because that's how their bodies build muscle and grow. Here to Kill Euronymous also replied to OOP's post. Have you had him tested for an attention deficit disorder?
My sister was like this, and didn't really change until she got therapy for it. She tried meds but didn't like them. They taught her coping skills instead. Oop replied, no, wasn't even on my radar, to be honest. I feel like half the comments are telling me to get him tested ASAP and the other half is saying it's normal 5-year-old boy behavior. Crying face. Illustrious Cut 4837. It might be both. One does not exclude the other. He very well could be ADHD, but that doesn't mean some aspect isn't regular little boy energy. But keep in mind there are other little boys with little boy energy that apparently do not need to be taken out of the classroom. That indicates your kiddo just might need a little extra support.
Never ever hurts to get them tested, and testing at this age is really just a play session. You have literally nothing to lose. Scorp 128. If your child was disrupting the learning of others or being disruptive in the classroom, the teacher would have told you. If the teacher has not mentioned getting your child tested for ADHD, it is probably not something to worry about. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Not something that has to be acted on ASAP. Do have a conversation with the teacher. But this sounds like the teacher realizes your child is high energy and is giving the appropriate opportunities to your child so their energy levels do not become an issue. Does this school follow a Montessori program? Oop replied, not Montessori, just public elementary. And yay, that's what I figured. If this was a problem I would have been notified by now. I guess they haven't told me because it's not a big deal. And then that had me wondering if this was a thing now that all public schools did. He is definitely high energy though, so I'm so grateful they accommodate for him and not punish him for it. Oops said this, and a lot of people replied that it sounded like occupational therapy. Yes, he is very high energy. Also recently discovered during carpet time. He, as well as the other 2 boys as I mentioned above, they have to sit in these special chairs while all the other children sit on the floor. They almost look like a rocking sled or something. I am almost wondering if I should get him tested for ADHD. And NBSP. Update on my son getting taken out of class every day. February 9th, 2024. Sorry, I don't know how to link my post from yesterday, which is what I'm referencing. But I got a lot of responses asking me to update once I emailed his teacher. It's not occupational therapy, which is what some people here thought. But I was clarified that I would have had to consent if that was the case. So basically the school has built-in, universal supports, for all children. Some of the tools they use for my son in particular is that rocking chair he sits in at circle time. And sensory breaks being done by a para. He doesn't go every day like I was originally led to believe, but usually 34 times a week. Pretty much when they have the extra para available to help. This is also why his teacher didn't formally tell me, because she said it wasn't a certainty that he'd even be able to go every day. Also because it's just part of their tools they implement for students who they feel need it. It's not like an IEP plan. He doesn't get taken out of class during any type of important instruction time. It's during snack rest time. I am very grateful for his teacher. She said my son is very funny and makes her laugh all the time. He just has lots of extra energy and is really benefiting from this kind of reset time. She didn't mention anything about ADHD in her reply email and didn't mention he's causing any disruptions to the rest of the class and NBSP. Reminder: I am not the original poster. Do not comment on linked posts. This isn't the heavy drama that's usually shared here, but it's a positive look into a school system and a teacher that are trying their best. And it's kind of a palate cleanser to read after some of the more disturbing content. I'm having flashbacks to a parent crying when I talk to them about figuring out together how to productively manage their 4th grade kids' energy, fidgeting, ADHD. I was apparently the first teacher ever to frame it as something to work through rather than, your kid's a problem. I was almost certain it was ADHD, something I have myself. And mom confirmed without me having to ask. In general, I apparently disappointed a lot of parents when I had to tell them no. I just taught these summer reading classes while getting my PhD. They couldn't transfer to my non-existent school. I'd let kids stand while they worked. I introduced a bunch of parents to fidget cubes. In general, being a teacher with ADHD and anxiety, I worked to try to meet students where they were. Reading about a school having built-in accommodations like this, especially the chairs for students who can't sit still, I love it so much. I do agree mom should have been told. But I just love so much that these high-energy kids aren't just being treated like bad kids. Wow. His teacher is a rock star and OOP+ son are lucky to have them. I wish this was more standard. Teachers need to be paid more in general. Nice to see something wholesome. Just an outsider looking in, but schools helping develop motor skills more seems really good. I've taught SPED and there are times I did pull out or push in with our kids for service minutes. But there were also times where half the class asked if I could take them too because what we did looked fun. So as not to stigmatize, I usually did grab an extra kid or two, and while I usually tried not to take the same kids, sometimes I would repeatedly take a bright, bored kid so that their teacher could score a few extra minutes with their struggling classmates. Without having to worry about a bored kid getting into trouble. You can ask their teacher if they have any concerns. But in my experience, going out to play with the specialists out in the pod was seen as a fun, positive thing, and really not a bad thing, at least at the younger ages. Schools have come a long way since I went in the 70s and 80s. We still had paddling when I was in elementary school. Any kind of approach to mental well-being for students was a totally foreign concept back then. We still have a long way to go, but I appreciate these strides. My son is almost 4. And I hope when he goes to school there's something like this. He's cranked to 11 from the second he wakes up until he falls asleep. High-energy kids can be challenging. I love seeing schools making an effort to help high-energy kiddos rather than let them struggle or punish them. God, I wish the schools I taught in had the resources for these kinds of universal supports. Most of them have some kind of sensory room, but it's up to teachers to find alternative seating, and it's usually reserved for the kids who need it most, i.e. coded. As wholesome as it is, OP should have been informed before they started doing this. I think it's awesome that they have these accommodations for children with high energy. But I'd also like to point if anyone came across this comment by chance. You can't formally diagnose ADHD that young unless it's that big a deal, that high a level that it's obvious since that age. And a teacher cannot make a diagnosis nor a psychologist. They can infer something and tell the parents to test the child, but the only one who can diagnose it is a neuropsychiatrist. At least that's what I learned while studying about it, and what was confirmed to me by a psychiatrist and a child psychologist. Want to take this moment to mention that the local school district just cut hundreds of teachers because state funding for schools hasn't met the proposed standards from 30 years ago. Fight for higher school funding. That's a really awesome setup that school has. That is not the norm. I wish it was. I think this is cool. I didn't like being forced to nap as a kid. Snacks weren't a sleepy time thing. They have energy to keep going. But I also think they should have told his mom, and any other parent, that this is a practice for all students. Even if he doesn't go every day, she should be aware of her son's class schedule, where he is, and who he is with. Kids at that age aren't able to fully communicate. Hence him saying he goes every day, but he's pretty close. So if something were to happen, she wouldn't have all or the correct information. I do like they are teaching her son coping skills and giving him aids for when he wants to move about, but it's focus time. They should give her some information on what to look out for and how she could assist from home if the tools they've introduced are for sensory challenges. I kind of get why they don't necessarily inform or ask permission for parents. You'll have some parents refuse because of whatever preconceived notions or assumptions that they have. And you'll have other parents that jump to all sorts of conclusions about what problems the kid has. Much like Reddit did. And given that this isn't something they can guarantee and they aren't doing anything other than have the kid run around for a bit, it makes sense not to be bringing it up with the parents. From another perspective, you wouldn't be asking the parents every time you need to make changes for a specific kid, because it would be endless. It's also probably a lot harder than we think to draw the line between what should and shouldn't be notified to parents. My son's school has a sensory room and recently got a therapy dog. It really is great to have so many supports. When I was in kindergarten, back in the mid-80s, they started pulling me out of class every day along with another boy who had some sort of intellectual disability. They didn't tell my mom about this, and they just assumed I had a learning disability too because my speech was unintelligible. Because I had a speech disorder, for which I was already being treated with weekly sessions with a speech therapist. When my mom found out I was being pulled from class to get extra instructions on colors, counting, and my ABCs, which I already knew before I started school, she was pissed. They stopped pulling me from class after she had a talk with them. Being pulled from class was definitely stigmatized back then, because only the stupid kids went, and I was so relieved when I didn't have to go anymore. Damn, I want that for all kids. Love this school's approach. I was expecting some drama going on with the kid being targeted for some reason, but instead got a wholesome and reasonable thing going on. At worst, I would say that they should have informed Oop and the other parents of this going, so they wouldn't get weird ideas, worry when their children told them.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.